All right, some of America's enemies are reacting to the Ayatollah's death, including Russian President Vladimir Putin, sending a letter to Iran's new acting leader saying, quote, please accept my deepest condolences in connection with the murder of the supreme leader of the Islamic Republic of Iran and members of his family committed in cynical violation of all norms of human morality and international law. China's statement reads, the attack and killing of Iran's supreme leader is a grave violation of Iran's sovereignty and security. China firmly opposes and strongly condemns it. We urge for an immediate stop to the military operations, no further escalation of the tense situation, and joint effort to maintain peace and stability in the Middle East and the world at large. Joining me now to break this down is Senior Fellow at the Center for Security Policy and author of When China Attacks, Colonel Grant Newsham. Colonel Newsham, thank you so much for joining us. So you heard it right there. Russia and China have both publicly condemned these strikes, but there's no evidence that they're going to intervene militarily on Iran's behalf. So what does that say about where Iran stands right now and the calculations that their allies, China and Russia, are making right now?
Well, it's not quite accurate to say that China isn't helping or that Russia isn't helping, but the Chinese in particular are providing intelligence information that's very useful for targeting American ships, American aircraft, and American sort of high-value targets throughout the region. So they're doing what they can, but in terms of direct assistance, the Chinese are obviously quite embarrassed, saying that they had a comprehensive strategic partnership with Iran, and now they can't do anything when the time comes. And 2 months ago, something similar happened to China's main proxy in Latin America, Venezuela. So it's not been a good couple of days for the Chinese, but they're not going to back off. The Russians, well, they've lost a lot of Iranian support with drones, missiles, ammunition, artillery shells now. And this alliance that they had, informal even if it was, looks a lot shakier than it was just a little while ago.
Yeah, and when it comes to Russia and China, my reference was to, of course, direct military assistance. And when it comes to that, the leaders of Britain, France, and Germany are now saying that they are ready to conduct defensive strikes after making it very clear that they wanted no part and had no part in the initial operations because they feel like diplomacy was the best course of action. So how significant is this from the UK, France, and Germany?
Well, it's marginally helpful now that these three countries have decided that they want to get in on this. We do see who our friends were, and it took them a little while to get to this point. And now they're trying to split the difference and say now they're just supporting us defensively. So this hasn't been their finest hour for the British and the French and the Germans either. But it's helpful. You can never have too much support.
Colonel Grant Newsham, we thank you so much for your time this morning.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brett.
All right, Shalom. I want to give all the praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai Bahasham Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who taught me this truth. Shalom to the hopeful elect. This article is from newstarget.com. The headline reads, it says, from regional spark to global inferno. The path to nuclear catastrophe in the Middle East. All right, prophecy. As we know that the Lord is going to judge the nations in this region of the earth. All right, pursuant to Zephaniah chapter 3, verse 8. And it reads, it says, therefore wait ye upon me, saith the Lord Yahweh Shemel Shai, into the day that I rise up to the prey, for my determination is to gather the nations. Where? In the so-called Middle East. All right? That's where it's all going to go down. Nuclear war, World War III. All right, all the tension is brewing. Missiles are dropping. I believe they're saying that oil tankers and ships are being hit in the what's it called, the Suez Canal. You know, that part of the world. Okay, which is going to affect the global supply chain. So expect more famines, food shortages. Okay, America running out of supplies, things like that, more chaos and panic, you know. Zephaniah 3 and 8, therefore wait ye upon me, saith the Lord, until the day that I rise up to the prey, for my determination is to gather the nations, that I may assemble the kingdoms, to pour upon them mine indignation, even all my fierce anger, for all the earth shall be devoured with the fire of my jealousy. And how's the Lord going to do that? World War III, nuclear war. All right. And also when he appears on the scene with the heavenly host, the chariots. All right. So I do want to come back to this article, but I wanted to make a point on what I brought out a couple of days ago. And this is from basedunderground.com. Because with all this going on, right? With all these things happening, all right, we understand, like I was saying, that the big one is coming, man. All right? They got to do something. As this war escalates in the so-called Middle East between America, Iran, Israel, and the other nations getting involved, we understand that over here they're going to bring something major. All right? Everybody's waiting on it. We understand that a major false you-know-what is coming, man. Okay, so I just wanted to read back through this one and add another one to it. But again, this is from baseunderground.com. It says AI-driven cyber attack scenarios point to the big one that experts say is coming. All right. So reading on again here. It says artificial intelligence is no longer just supercharging our social media feeds and search engines. It is rapidly becoming the accelerant that could turn a manageable cyber incident into a national catastrophe, right? Hospitals going dark, right? These are the scenarios. Hospitals going dark, cities losing power, food and water systems disrupted, logistics frozen. These are not the plots. These are not the plot points of a dystopian novel. They are the scenarios that top American security officials these are the scenarios that top American security officials are now quietly describing as the big one in cyber warfare, and AI is the force making them more likely, more complex, and harder to stop. The alarm is not coming from fringe corners of the internet. It is coming from men like Leon Panetta, former Secretary of Defense, General Paul Nakasone, the former head of the NSA in the U.S. Cyber Command, Michael Hayden, former CIA director, and the other senior cyber officials who spent their careers thinking about worst-case scenarios and how to prevent them, right? It says when people at that level start talking about AI-driven cyber attacks, that could paralyze the country, okay? It's time for serious citizens to listen and demand accountability from both government and in the private sector, right? It says the core insight emerging from these experts is simple and chilling. AI does not have to invent entirely new forms of cyber attack to become dangerous. It just has to make existing attacks faster, smarter, more scalable, and harder to detect. Generative AI can help adversaries probe networks automatically for weaknesses, craft convincing phishing messages in any language, and coordinate attacks against multiple targets with machine speed precision. What used to require teams of elite hackers can increasingly be done by smaller groups or even individuals with AI tools guiding their efforts, man. This AI is a problem, man. All right, and as we've been talking about in many of these lessons, that this AI is going to be the end of this man's system, man. It's going to be the end of his empire, right? Let me jump down a little bit. So it says, Panetta, who has warned for years about the possibility of a cyber Pearl Harbor, right? A cyber Pearl Harbor, okay? It says now sees AI as the tool that could take us from scattered disruptions to full-blown national paralysis, right? Because once they shut this shit down with an EMP or some type of cyber attack, it's over, okay? And that's going to be the end of Babylon the Great, man, okay? It says he points to critical infrastructure, especially power and water systems, which they've been telling you for years that these these infrastructures are vulnerable. All right, they're open to be taken down easily as the most tempting and dangerous targets. Right. In his view, AI could accelerate the process of infiltrating these systems and even cripple backup mechanisms that are supposed to kick in when something goes wrong, making blackouts longer and recovery far harder. The danger is not just losing power, but losing control of systems designed to restore it. Okay? So they understand this, man. All right? And I'll read a little bit more. Right? I just want to read these last paragraphs here. All right? And we'll get to it. It says General Paul Nakasan, who has run both the NSA and U.S. Cyber Command, adds a different but equally disturbing dimension: loss of control over AI itself. All right, which they've been admitting that. All right, the people that's behind it, these top, scientists or whatnot, they were saying that they're losing control of the AI. All right, it's reached beyond human capability. All right, it can make its own decisions. Right. It says he warns that a nation state using AI to manage attacks or operations could lose control of an AI entity and trigger massive disruptions to food and water systems without fully intending to. You see that? So as I said, expect, food shortages. All right, supply chain shortages. Okay, total panic and chaos. Okay, these are the scenarios that are coming, man. All right, let me jump down. It says this kind of scenario looks like a deliberate act of war, and more like the 1980s film War Games, where a system designed for strategic advantage nearly ends civilization by accident. All right, are you seeing this? Okay, where a system designed for strategic advantage nearly ends civilization by accident. The point is not that the machines become self-aware, but the human beings, enticed by the power of automation, outsource too much judgment and too many decisions to systems that only partially understand. And that's what happened in Terminator, man. Okay? The AI took over, launched missiles at Russia. In response, Russia, launched those missiles back at America, and that was the Judgment Day. All right? So look how this stuff is playing out, man. My last point here, my last point is paragraph right here, says there's also the lingering shadow of China and other hostile powers already inside American systems. It is not speculation that hackers linked to the Chinese government have compromised part of U.S. critical infrastructure. That fact has been publicly acknowledged. Nakasan notes that nation states do understand the consequences of a direct attack on the United States, and that any serious strike would likely provoke a response that goes far beyond cyberspace. This is precisely why several experts think accidental escalation or actions by proxy actors or non-state groups may be just as likely as a clean, centrally ordered attack. Once powerful AI tools are widely available, control becomes a spectrum, not a switch, all right? And that's the point I want to get there, man. All right? So again, the big one is coming. Let me add some more, right? Or matter of fact, let me grab the scripture real quick, okay? This is Jeremiah 50:22. It says, a sound of battle is in the land and of great destruction, all right? And this is what's getting ready to come to America, man, all right? Great destruction, all right? As we see what's going on in the so-called Middle East right now. Verse 23, how is the hammer of the whole earth cut asunder and broken? How has Babylon become a desolation among the nations? All right. And that's the future destiny for America. All right. America is regarded as the hammer of the whole earth. All right. All these different wars since America's been in power. All right. Over these past 250 years, man. All right. America's been at war with pretty much every nation on earth, man. All right. And now we're living in a time where the Most High is getting ready to cut down the hammer of the whole earth. Okay? Verse 24, it says, I have laid a snare for thee, and thou art also taken, O Babylon. Thou was not aware, thou art found and also caught, because thou hast striven against the Lord, Yahweh Shem Yahushai. All right? So the Lord is laying that snare, that trap. Okay, going back to what we were reading here. Okay, the cyber attack, EMP, whatever. All right, that's part of the trap. As we read, the Chinese. What did it say about the Chinese government? It says hackers linked to the Chinese government have compromised parts of the U.S. critical infrastructure, and that fact has been publicly acknowledged. Okay, so America is vulnerable, man. It's about to be taken down. Okay, it's open for the kill, so to speak, man. And they've been talking about this for years. As I was saying, I did some lessons some years ago, going into that fact. All right, the critical infrastructure, the power. Okay, the electrical system. All of that, man. As we read, the water. Okay, it's all part of the trap. Verse 25, it says, "The Lord Yahweh Shem Yahushua have opened his armory, and have brought forth the weapons of his indignation. For this is the work of the Lord, power of hosts in the land of the Chaldeans," right? The nuclear missiles. Okay. Verse 26, "Come against her from the utmost border, open her storehouses, cast her up as heaps, destroy her utterly, let nothing of her be left." All right. This place is soon to be totally annihilated, man. All right. "Slay all her bullocks, let them go down to the slaughter. Woe unto them, for their day is come, the time of their visitation. The voice of them that flee and escape out of the land of Babylon, to declare in Zion the vengeance of our Lord power, Yahweh Shem Yahushai, the vengeance of his temple." Okay, so this is the time. All right. Let me go back and make this point here, right? So just adding on. So like we're talking about, the big one is coming. This is from telegraph.co.uk. This came out March 2nd, 2026. It says, "I smell a crash coming." Right? We do too. "I smell a crash coming," says former Goldman Sachs boss. Ex-chief believes there are parallels to global financial crisis amid shadow banking concerns. Right? Matter of fact, let's see if we can get a summary real quick. Bear with me. All right. Let's see what we can get. All right, so it says, overview of the warning. Former Goldman Sachs boss Lloyd Blankfein has signaled that the global economy is showing signs of an impending financial crisis. While he noted he does not yet feel the full storm, he observed that market conditions are beginning to mirror the lead up to the 2008 crash. Right? It says key indicators of risk, hidden leverage. Blankfein expressed concern over hidden secret leverage within the financial system, suggesting that risks are being underestimated just as they were during the mortgage crisis. Shadow banking. He identified the shadow banking ecosystem, specifically private credit lenders, as a primary driver of instability, and these entities operate outside the strict regulations of traditional banks. Retail exposure. He criticized the move to open complex private credit investments to everyday retail savers at a time of increasing market volatility. All right. And the rest reads on. All right. So you get it. The point I'm making, okay, we see it coming. We can feel it coming. All right. The big one. I smell a crash coming. Right. The big one is coming. All right. Read between the lines. You see that? So anyway, let's get into this article real quick. All right. So going back again, from regional spark to global inferno, the path to nuclear catastrophe in the Middle East. Right. It says a calculated spark, the U.S. and Israel's opening move. As the war against Iran unfolds, the Middle East stands at the precipice of a conflict unlike any other. The catalyst is not miscalculation born of desperation, but a calculated act of aggression. A scenario emerges where, driven by what one analysis calls vanity and imperial hubris, the United States under President Donald Trump coordinates with Israel to launch a preemptive, multi-pronged attack. This is not a limited strike, but a comprehensive assault designed to cripple the sovereign nation of Iran. All right, and they've been pulled right into the trap. All right, the least of the flock should draw them out. It says Israeli and American jets strike several cities and key military installations across Iran simultaneously as part of a coordinated psychological and military operation. Domestic terror cells within Iran are activated to sow chaos and confusion from within. And it's the same thing over here in America. They got sleeper cells over here, which are getting ready to be activated to cause acts of T, right? The strategic aim is clear: decapitate Iranian command structures, disable critical infrastructure, and plunge the nation into a disarray, violating its sovereignty in a brazen act of war. The opening salvo, rooted in a desire for regional domination, by what former Trump aide Stephen Bannon would label as Israel First policy, immediately escalates a simmering conflict into a full-blown conflagration. All right. All right, so let's summarize this. Hold on. All right. Let's get to the point. Bear with me. It's going down, man. Let's see. They didn't really give me nothing there. So I'll read a little bit and we'll grab the scriptures and wrap this up. All right. But everybody, the world is watching, as I said before. All right. All eyes on the Middle East, Israel, Iran, America, nuclear war. Okay. Let's jump down here. It says the point of no return, nuclearization, and unchecked escalation. All right, as we saw earlier, Operation Epic Fury. All right, it's going down fast. With its conventional forces facing existential losses in its cities under relentless bombardment, Iran makes a fateful decision. The nation accelerates its Latin nuclear weapons program with explicit aim of manufacturing a deterrent, possibly within a month. This decision shatters a decades-old taboo and fundamentally alters the strategic calculus. The war is no longer about regional influence. It is now an existential struggle for national survival. All right, this is why they're getting ready to. They're responding. All right, they're they're saying that American soldiers are dying. There's casualties right now. All right. Cities are being bombed. Military bases, American military bases are being bombed. All right. It's going down. All right. Let's see. Let's get a little bit more here. It says the United States is interpreting Iran's nuclear pivot as an intolerable threat, responds with overwhelming force. It launches a massive strategic bombing campaign utilizing B-52 and B-2 stealth bombers, turning the conflict into a total war aimed at dismantling the Iranian state. A vicious cycle of escalating retaliatory strikes engulfs the entire region, with Iran unleashing its full arsenal of missiles and drones against all remaining U.S. bases and assets, right? You see? So there's attacks going on right now, all right? Global appeals for restraint from Russia, China, and other nations go unheeded as both sides become locked in a cycle of vengeance, their command systems on a hair trigger alert, all right? Let's see if there's any more. Yeah, so that's the point, man. It's over, all right? The beginning of sorrows, man. Okay. Joel 3:9. Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, prepare war. Wake up the mighty men, let all the men of war draw near, let them come up. And this is what's happening now. The spirit of war, all right, amongst the kings of the nations, all right? They're being drawn up. Okay, Isaiah 13, how the Lord mustereth the host of the battle. Verse 10, beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I am strong. All right. Now, these nations, they're using those missiles. You know, war is happening, man. They got the technology. You see? It says, assemble yourselves and come, all you heathen, gather yourselves together round about thither. Cause thy mighty ones to come down, O Lord, Yahweh Shem Yahushai. Let the heathen be awakened, right? And come up to the valley of Yahweh Shaphat, for there will I sit to judge all the heathen round about, all right? And this is in the so-called Middle East, all right? It says, verse 13, put ye in the sickle, for the harvest is ripe. Come get you down, for the press is full, the fats overflow, for the wickedness is great, multitudes, multitudes in the valley of decision, for the day of the Lord is near in the valley of decision, right? So, hey, it's about to go, man. All right, the end is closer than ever, man, right? 2 Ezra 16:1, woe be unto thee, Babylon and Asia. Woe be unto thee, Egypt and Assyria. All right? It's all going down. All right? The Middle East. Gird up yourselves with cloths of sack and hair. Bewail your children and be sorry, for your destruction is at hand. All right? There you have it, man. All right? So one step closer to nuclear war, man. And we're all paying attention. We're all waiting for, as we talked about, the big one. All right, the cyber attack, the economic crash, all right, whatever, that's going to bring America down. Shalom.